Early summer is a busy time in the garden, but right now there's a short window to get ahead. Today I've got 8 crops to sow in early summer. They love the warmth, they get off fast, and they could be giving you a harvest in as little as 6 weeks, but only if you sow them before it's too late. So first up is a vegetable that's going to make you feel a bit like a gardening genius, sprouting broccoli. Sprouting broccoli is a winter type of broccoli, and it requires a little bit of patience because it takes from sowing to harvest anywhere from 8 to 10 months. But my goodness, is it worth the wait? When you harvest those beautiful purple, green, all white spears, they're like absolute horticultural caviar, if you will, and they're coming up at a time of year when there's little else to pick. It's real gold. So I'm going to start my purple sprouting broccoli off into plug trays. Now the reason for this is that I can keep them better protected from the likes of slugs and pigeons, but perhaps most importantly is that I can sow them and get them started while the ground they are going to go into eventually is still occupied. So these do take, as I said, 8 to 10 weeks to go from sowing to harvest. So if some of that time is in the plug tray, we're making more use of our space there. So I've just filled it with my sieved or screened all-purpose potting mix and made little dimples with my fingers. And now I'm going to go in with 2 seeds per cell. And if both germinate, I'll just remove the weakest to leave the strongest in each cell. And I guess they are about a 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 centimetre deep. Now these will grow on for anywhere from sort of 4 to 8 weeks really, and then they will be planted out into their final growing positions, and they'll go out about 2 foot or 60 centimetres apart in both directions. That might seem like quite a lot, especially when the plants are quite young, but they are quite substantial plants ultimately, so they do need that space. Do not be tempted to cram them in. Throughout the summer and early autumn, your sprouting broccoli plants will put on a good root system and get nice and sturdy, and then they will sail through the winter. They're really hardy, but they do need protecting from those pigeons who will just tear them apart if they get a chance. They love sprouting broccoli. And then they might just seem like they're not doing much over winter, and then all of that sort of will they, won't they patience will be rewarded in early spring when they burst back into life, and then suddenly those incredible spears appear almost overnight, and at a time of year when there really isn't much else to pick. And this is the #1 reason to grow sprouting broccoli. It fills that hungry gap. Next up, a root vegetable that in my opinion is criminally underrated. Swede, or to our North American friends, rutabaga or rutabaga. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, maybe let me know in the comments. And to our Scottish friends, of course, this is a neep. But why is it so special? Well, let me crack it open here and you can see its beautiful sort of yellowy flesh and rooty flavour. Now for me, my absolute best way to serve this is to boil it up with some potatoes and then mash it all up with plenty of cream and butter and lots of spicy white pepper. That's the important thing, white pepper, not black. Or you could have it in stews where it softens up and absorbs all those savoury flavours. To me, this is a real kind of king of the root vegetables. Now here's the thing, swede actually prefers to be sown at this time of year. Sow it too early and it runs the risk of bolting, but sow it now and it will grow steadily through the warmth of summer, and then as autumn arrives, those roots will get their sugars really concentrated, and that's in response to cold weather. So it's a great thing to sow precisely at this point in this narrow window. So it's been incredibly dry here, so I'm watering into these drills that I have made about 1 centimetre or 1/2 inch deep to kind of prime the soil so it's ready for those seeds. I'm sowing them direct rather than into plug trays because swedes, like many root crops, do prefer to be sown directly. They don't like root disturbance. And then this is a brassica, like the sprouting broccoli or many cabbage family plants, so the seeds look very similar, so they're very easy to sow. And I'm going to sow them so they're about 1 inch apart like that, but please don't worry, it's hard to get it perfectly sown and these will need thinning out, so if you sow a bit thickly or a few seeds drop out, it's not the end of the world. You can just pluck out the seedlings at a later date. That's it. Run along the row like that. And I've spaced my second row just about a foot or 30 centimetres from the first here. The soil has got a bit kind of clumpy and hard, so what I'm going to do is cover the seedlings over just with some potting mix instead, which is a bit finer, so they can come through without any problem. Now once they do, I will thin out the seedlings in stages, so they're about 9 inches or what's that, 22 centimetres apart very roughly, which will give plenty of room for those big chunky roots to form and properly develop. And then to finish, just watering along the rows there. Now I'll need to keep these well watered and weed free, but do that and I should have some beautiful golden roots that'll see me through from autumn right through to spring really. Like swede or rutabaga, some leafy greens can also improve in taste with cold frosty weather, including my absolute favourite, kale. Now, when you get cold temperatures with kale, what happens is that the starches in the leaves are broken down and converted into sugars, giving your leaves a kind of sweeter and more tender edge to them. And those leaves, of course, come at a time when they're most appreciated, in the winter and on into early spring during that pesky hungry gap. Now is the time to start off kale for a long harvest window that incorporates autumn, winter and indeed on into spring. I'm also sowing into plug trays for these guys, for like my purple sprouting broccoli here, just means I can keep a beady eye on them and keep them safe from slugs and pigeons. And they're sown in exactly the same way. So I'm going to sow 2 seeds into each little plug, and then if they both come up, just remove the weakest. There we are. Now these are really fast growers. They germinate often within a week at this time of year, and then once they have, I'll just grow them on in here and plant them out. And this time they will go out about 18 inches or 45 centimetres apart in both directions. I do love kale. It's a kind of alpha vegetable, if you like, the way it's just so hardy and also so beautiful as well. Good looks and good taste. A rare combination sometimes. The great thing about kale, actually, another thing I forgot to say, is that it's a great follow-on crop. So these will go in place of my early potatoes or perhaps my fava or broad beans. So it's a great one to kind of make sure there's always something in the ground following straight on. Now they like a kind of sunny to light shaded position, but something that really is crucial is to give them somewhere that's nice and fertile, rich soil. Like all brassicas, they love that because they're quite hungry feeders. So I just improve the soil with a bit of garden made compost, something like that. Now the trick with kale is to harvest the lowest outermost leaves first and keep on doing that, leaving the central crown to grow on. Now if you do that, the plants will be incredibly long-lived actually. By the end of the season they'll be kind of like old friends and you'll be sad to see them go, but they will keep you in those lovely leaves for months on end. And now for a pair of herbs that are absolute workhorses in the kitchen, summer savoury and chives. So first up is summer savoury, and this is a herb that bean lovers really need to know about. In fact, in German it's called Bohnenkraut, which translates as bean herb, so you can see it really is perfect for beans. And if you haven't sown any beans yet, well, we've got that coming up in a bit. And I'll be sowing a really fast growing variety and type of bean that will be perfect to pair with this. Summer savoury, if you have never tried it, has a slightly peppery, a bit of a flavour like thyme perhaps, and unlike winter savoury, it is actually a lot milder and more delicate, and it's fast growing, which really does make it perfect for sowing right now. Now the seeds are pretty small, but I'm going to sow them little pinches into a pot like this that I've filled, just twizzled over, and then just cover them over ever so slightly. You can also sow them direct where it will grow into kind of finely raked soil and just kind of tamp it in with a rake, but I think this way I can just keep an eye on them. And then there are chives, surely one of the most useful herbs of all. Its gentle oniony flavour pairs so well with eggs, potatoes, snipped into soups, just about anything. Even the flowers, they're edible and they look so beautiful scattered into an early summer salad. They're really beautiful. They're great companion plants too. They go well with so many vegetables, including rutabaga or swede, coincidentally. And if you would like to know more about companion planting combinations, our garden planner has a useful companion planting function which you really ought to try out. Now, chives are a little bit slower to germinate. They can take up to sort of 3 or 4 weeks, so do be patient with them. And they're sown exactly the same way as our summer savoury, into pots, a little sprinkle over like that, and then covered over. Now, once they come up, you'll get little tufts of like little grass-like sort of seedlings, and then they can be separated out and then potted on into bigger pots or just planted out where they are to grow. Once established, chives are perennial, meaning they come back year after year. So you can just dig up clumps like this and just separate them out into sort of smaller clumps, maybe like that, and just replant those wherever you want them. And that way you can keep it going indefinitely and won't have to re-sow again. These here are my climbing beans that I sowed just a few weeks ago. And if you want to still sow them, there is indeed enough time. I will drop a link to last month's video where I showed how to sow these. But if you are looking for an even quicker and easier thing to grow, then well, bush or dwarf beans are your answer. They don't need any supports, and sown into warm soil, they will quickly get up and away. And they are quick. They could be ready within about 8 weeks of sowing, which is pretty remarkable. And I do love being out in the garden, sitting around like this on these chip paths and just admiring my handiwork. Look at these stunning poached egg flowers, aren't they beauts? But let's get on and sow those dwarf beans. I'm going to sow 2 rows in here, and like I said, the great thing about dwarf beans is that they can be snuck into just about anywhere, even just planting like 2 or 3 little beans and having a little cluster as and when gaps appear. So I'm going to make 2 rows, and they're just over a foot or so apart. I often use my shoe as a handy measure because that is actually 30 centimetres or 1 foot. So I kind of always keep that to hand and check with my foot sometimes. And I'm making 2 little trenches here about 2 inches or what's that, 4 or 5 centimetres deep like that. And then these big chunky beans are just going to go in at 4 inches or 10 centimetres apart, and I'm going to space them obviously individually like this. Push them down, and then we'll cover them over in a sec. The variety I'm sowing, by the way, is a type of borlotti bean, and these are really good because you can harvest them fresh for lovely green pods, or you can just let them mature on the plant and then harvest them to dry them to then store and then use over the winter months in casseroles and so on. So I love the fact that it's that dual purpose bean. Now its soil is nice and warm, I can feel that, so they're going to get away beautifully. And if you're thinking there's not much space between here and these lettuces, these are going to be harvested for tea in a bit, so there'll be plenty of room here. So let's cover them over, and I'll give them a good water to set them on their way. So I'll keep my beans well watered, and I will pick often to keep them coming. Most will be harvested once they've fully dried up to shell for those delicious beans for casseroles, but I will enjoy some fresh as well. I sowed some beet or beetroots in late winter and planted them out in spring, and here they are, look, they're coming along really beautifully. But the thing is, early summer is in fact the ideal time to sow beetroots for a main crop, the ones that will see you through the autumn and on into winter with their beautifully red, earthy roots. The soil is warmer at this time of year, which means quicker germination and faster growth, and you avoid the slight risk of bolting, which can sometimes impact beets that are sown earlier in the season while it's still quite cold. Now, beetroots are one of those vegetables I like to multi-sow, which just means putting more than 1 seed into each little cluster or clump, or in this case, plug tray. And the plug trays I'm using are pretty small actually, but that's because they're not going to be in here long. As soon as they're up and away, I'll just plant them out. Now, let me show you the seeds here. So each little seed is in fact a cluster of seeds. So by sowing one, you might get more than one seedling, 2 or possibly 3. So I'm dropping in an average of 4 seeds, or rather clusters, into each little plug like that. But I can expect to get 4 to kind of up to 8 seedlings, and that's absolutely fine because these guys are going to be grown on, planted out, all as one little clump. And what I will do is I will very carefully twist away the biggest root in each case and let the smaller ones grow on undisturbed. That way I'm sort of naturally thinning them out as they grow. And it spaces out the harvest that way as well. I've just got these left over to show you the kind of size that I'll plant them out at. And you can see here they're in little clusters of 4 or 5 seedlings. And they've got a bit of a root system there, so they're all good to plant. So they're really young, and these will go about 1 foot or 30 centimetres apart in a block formation. The trick with beets is to keep them well watered, because if they do dry out, the roots can turn a bit kind of woody and tough, and obviously we don't want that. But with any joy and luck, within 10 weeks I will be lifting those beautiful roots. Next up, spinach. And I know what you're thinking, spinach in the heat of summer, surely that is asking for trouble. And yes, spinach can be a bit temperamental and bolt when it's hot and dry, like this is doing here. But this lot here was sown at the end of winter, so it has indeed bolted, but that's because I had to choose a really sunny position for it earlier in the season. Our next batch we're going to sow now is going to be of a bolt resistant variety. It's going to be planted in a shadier spot, and we're of course going to keep it well watered. And that should mean that we can indeed grow spinach even in summer. So I'll spare you filling up the plug tray again and all the rest of it, but it's the same old sort of scenario. This time I am sowing 2 seeds into each plug like that. There we are. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then just cover them over. Now, a little tip for you is when you're succession sowing kind of fast growing crops like radish or sort of salad onion or indeed spinach, is you can sow one tray at the same time you're about to plant another. And in fact, this one's got a label here. I can just transfer the label, grow that on, plant this lot out, and then once those are ready, plant the next lot out and keep the succession going. So let's go and plant these. So I'm just going to plant these about a foot or 30 centimetres or so apart. And the trick, as I said, with these summer spinaches is just to keep them nicely watered. And actually they'll get plenty of shade here because not only is it a naturally shaded spot anyway, there's trees behind you there, but also this asparagus will form a nice loose feathery kind of canopy over it as well, so it'll kind of get a bit of dappled shade from that. So all in all, this is quite a good spot for it. And that's a great thing about when you're choosing what to grow where, is taking advantage of the plants around you. I could equally plant these in the shade of, say, some climbing beans or cucumbers or something like that. Another secret with summer spinach, and indeed pretty much any spinach, is to pick the leaves while they're not too big. These are on the bigger side, but the younger leaves have a lovely tender, almost sweet kind of flavour. And by doing that, you're going to keep the plant in productive mode, producing these leaves, and slow down the desire for them to bolt. Now, as I pick these leaves, I'm seeing more of the soil beneath. So what I might do is just come along afterwards and apply a bit of a mulch of dried grass clippings just to shade the soil, keep the moisture in, and keep my spinach happy. If you are in a really hot climate, then there are alternatives to normal spinach. You could try Malabar spinach, New Zealand spinach, or even amaranth. And we actually included amaranth in our recent video on protein-packed picks, which I will link to below. Well, that little lot should keep your green fingers and thumbs busy. And if you would like to know exactly when to sow precisely where you are, then do check out our garden planner. It uses data from your nearest weather station to produce a planting and sowing schedule that is unique to you. Just hop on over here to get started with our 7-day free trial. And I will catch you next time.